Hello everyone, I welcome you all in our 1000 most expected question series for CUET-PG 2026 English Literature exam. So those of you are preparing for CUET-PG 2026 English Literature exam, do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel to get to know all the important questions that have been already asked in different exams like CUET-PG and UGC NET JRF. So in this session we will discuss who are the important university wits in Elizabethan time period and who are the important authors of Jacobean play and what are the important Jacobean plays they wrote in their time period. All of them we will discuss in our today's session. So watch this video till the end to know all these questions and answers. So without further delay, let's begin the session. The first question of today's session is who first used the term university wits? We all know in Elizabethan time periods there were 6 playwrights who are known as university wits, and these playwrights are Christopher Marlowe, John Lilly, George Peele, Thomas Nash, Thomas Lodge, Thomas Kidd, and these playwrights are called by university wits in the 19th century critic George Saintbury. George Saintbury used the term to depict those 6 playwrights of Elizabethan time period as university wits, and he was the first person who termed them as university wits. The second question is who wrote the work Euphues, the Anatomy of Wits? From the University Wits, one of the playwrights who is known for his famous euphuistic style, and the playwright who is famous for his euphuistic style in his work is John Lilly. John Lilly, who wrote the work Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit in the year 1578, and he is known for his euphuistic style in his works. The third question is what is the subtitle of Thomas Kidd's Spanish tragedy? Thomas Kidd's Spanish tragedy, from which work the revenge tradition in Elizabethan plays came into being, and the play The Spanish Tragedy, which have a subtitle, and the subtitle of this work is Hieronymo is Mad Again. Thomas Kidd's play The Spanish Tragedy or The Hieronymo is Mad Again is published in the year 1589. The fourth question is what was the first play of Christopher Marlowe? Christopher Marlowe, who was the first playwright in university wits, who wrote different plays in Elizabethan time period, and the first play of Christopher Marlowe was Tamburlaine the Great. In this work, he deals with the great king Tamburlaine and his reign, and his other important work is Dr. Faustus, which is famous for his depiction of supernatural machinery or black magic. And the fifth question is the parasite servant Mosca appears in which play of Ben Jonson? Ben Jonson, an Elizabethan playwright or first generation Jacobean playwright who is famous for his use of 4 humors in his work, and the parasite servant Mosca appears in his work Volpone or the Fox. In the work Volpone or the Fox, there is a parasite character Mosca who appears as a servant. The sixth question is in which play of Ben Jonson Shakespeare acted as a character? William Shakespeare in his early years acted as a playwright, and he works in one of Ben Jonson's play also, and the play is Every Man and His Humor. Every Man in His Humor, which is published in the year 1598, and in this work Shakespeare acted as a character. The seventh question is how many essays did Francis Bacon write? Francis Bacon, an Elizabethan prose writer, and his essays are divided into 3 parts. and these essays are appeared in the year 1625 with total number of essays are 58. Francis Bacon total wrote 58 essays in his time period. The eighth question is, in which work Francis Bacon talked about an ideal institution, Solomon House? In which work of Francis Bacon's he imagines to create an ideal institution which is known as Solomon's House? The Francis Bacon imagines the creation of Solomon House in his work The New Atlantis. Francis Bacon's work New Atlantis, which was published in the year 1629, and in his work he imagines to create an ideal institution which is known as Solomon's House in the work New Atlantis or Novum Organum. The ninth question is, in which play of John Donne he compared his beloved to exploration of America? We all know John Donne, who is famous for his metaphysical poets and his wits, and here one of his poems he compared his beloved or mistress to the land of America, and the poem is To His Mistress Going to Bed. To His Mistress Going to Bed. In this work, John Donne compared his mistress with the land of America. And his other important poems are To His Coy Mistress. What are the two anniversary poems of John Donne? John Donne, who is famous for the creation of anniversary poems, metaphysical poems, and holy sonnets, and he wrote two anniversary poems, and these two anniversary poems are An Anatomy of the World, which is published in the year 1611, and The Progress of the Soul, which is published in the year 1612, and these are the two important anniversary poems which are written by John Donne. The 11th question is, in which year did Bishop ban happen? In the Elizabethan time period, through the bishop ban, all the plays or all the theatres were banned in England, and this bishop ban happened in the year 1599. And the 12th question is, who was the prominent mask designer of 16th century? And there was one of the most famous mask designer in 16th century, which known for his mask design, and the mask designer of 16th century is Inigo Jones. Inigo Jones, who was the prominent mask designer in 16th century, who is famous for his creation of masks in different Elizabethan plays. The 13th number question is, who wrote the work Demonologia? The work Demonologia, which became inspiration for William Shakespeare Macbeth and his witchcraft, and the inspiration of his work Macbeth, William Shakespeare took from James I. James I of England or James VI of Scotland, who came into his reign in 1603, and he wrote the work Demonologia, in which work he deals with different witchcrafts. And the 14th question is, in which year did gunpowder plot happen? In order to kill King James I of England, the Catholics planned to a plot, and this plot is known as gunpowder plot or the Jesuit treason, and this happened in 5th November 1605. In 5th November 1605, Catholics were to kill King James I through the plot, and this plot is also known as Jesuit treason. And the 15th question is, how many holy sonnets did John Donne write? Behind his metaphysical poets or anniversary poems, John Donne also wrote holy sonnets, and these sonnets are total numbered as 19. John Donne total wrote 19 holy sonnets in his time period. The 16th question is, who said Shakespeare was the Homer or our dramatic poets? Johnson was the Virgil. Who was the Elizabethan dramatist or playwright who compares Shakespeare with Virgil and Homer? and Johnson, who compares Shakespeare with Homer and Johnson with Virgil in his essays. It was John Dryden who wrote essay on dramatic poesy in the year 1668, and in this essay he compares Shakespeare with Homer and Johnson with Virgil. The 17th question is, what are the two important revenge tragedies by John Webster? John Webster, who is known for his famous two revenge tragedies, and these revenge tragedies are White Devil, The White Devil, which published in the year 1612, and The Duchess of Malfi, which is published in 1614. And these are the two important revenge tragedies by the 17th century, early 17th century playwright John Webster. The 18th question is, who said revenge is a kind of wild justice? In the 16th century, there were many essayists and many playwrights, and one of the famous essayists of that time period, in his essay of revenge, he said that revenge is a kind of wild justice. And this is said by the essayist Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon, who wrote total 58 essays, and in his one of the famous essays of revenge, he said that revenge is a kind of wild justice. The 19th question is, who wrote the sonnet on first looking into Chapman's Homer? George Chapman, who is famous for his translation of Homer, and in the later time period, one of the second generation romantic poets who wrote a sonnet on George Chapman, and the sonneteer of on first looking Chapman's Homer was John Keats. John Keats was the second generation romantic poet along with Shelley, and he is famous for his writing on first looking Chapman's Homer. The 20th question is, in which year did King James Version of Bible publish? We all know there were many translations of Bible. The first translation of Bible is John Wycliffe's translation, which appears in 1380s. Then later, some of the later translations are William Tyndale's translation, John Mandeville's translation, and all of the translation compiled into one translation, and this translation is known as King James Version or King James Bible, which published in the year 1611. 21st question is, which is the subtitle of Shoemaker's Holiday? The subtitle of Shoemaker Holiday is The Gentle Craft, which is published in the year 1599. The 22nd question is, who was known as Prose Shakespeare? After the era of Shakespeare, there were many playwrights or many prose writers who took the inspiration from William Shakespeare and followed the writing of Shakespeare. And it was Thomas Heywood who is known as Prose Shakespeare, and it was Charles Lamb who called him Prose Shakespeare. The 23rd question is John Marston's The Malcontent is dedicated to John Marston, who is famous for his Jacobean plays, and his work The Malcontent is dedicated to Ben Jonson. John Marston dedicated his play The Malcontent to another Jacobean playwright who is Ben Jonson. The 24th question is, who wrote the work Salve Duex Judiorum? Salve Duex Judiorum is a work which is written by one of the first female writer of Jacobean period, and the work is written by Amelia Lanier. Amelia Lanier, who is known as one of the first female writer of Jacobean time period. The 25th question is, who used the pseudonym dramatic junior? In various time period, there are many writers who wrote under different pseudonyms, like Charles Dickens under Boz, George Eliot wrote under Marian Evans, and like the pseudonym dramatic junior is used by the playwright Robert Burton. Robert Burton used this pseudonym in his writing of the Anatomy of Melancholy, and these are the important questions in our third part of 1000 most expected question series. So those of you are preparing for CUET-PG 2026 English Literature exam, do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel to get to know all the important questions that have been already asked in your exams. So thank you everyone for watching this video.